Hello, this is Paul CHEK. Welcome back to my video blog. Today I thought I would share an infant development exercise. I don't typically share infant development exercises on video for the public outside of my advanced training programs through the CHEK Institute because most infant development exercises have to be done with very good technique or you'll actually train the body at a very deep level to move incorrectly, which is why you don't see me putting videos out on infant development. This particular exercise is safe to do if you do it with good form, and you don't really need a professional like a CHEK trained professional there to cue you, because there's a fair bit of latitude for a number of reasons too technical to explain right now. You're not going to hurt yourself doing this unless you shouldn't be doing it because you're just too out of shape to do it. But this is what I'm going to show you is called the bear walk to begin with. Then we'll go into the reptilian crawl. So this is ultimately a video about the exercise I call the reptilian crawl. I'll teach you a couple things about it to help you understand what good technique is versus poor technique. And then I'll show you a way to make it more playful and more dynamic. And I'll just give you some ideas, but you can be creative with it. If you look at someone like Tim Sheaf, who's an amazing athlete, free running champion, ninja warrior champion, someone who I interviewed recently on my podcast, and look at his, search him out on the internet, you can see that he's a real master of what I call primal pattern movements, and really what I popularized as primal pattern movements all the way back in 1988. But you can look at what he's doing and see how evolved these things can get. I'm just showing you stuff that's safe for people to use in general. So basically we're going to start easy in the bear walk position. And the bear walk position is basically when a child is crawling, they'll often get to the point where they start picking their butt up in the air. That's what I'm referring to as a bear walk. So the bear walk is just moving like that. Now, one thing that you want to do is you want to draw your umbilicus in just enough to stabilize your core. You don't need to suck it in tight. Just remember, the more load there is going through your core, the more activation of the deep abdominal wall or transverse abdominis you need. The more you draw that belly in, the more it activates the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, and the deep stabilizers of the spine, because they're all neurologically linked together. You can easily prove that to yourself by just putting your finger in your belly button and tightening your rectum like you're trying to stop yourself from pooping. Or for a guy, if you just lift your testicles without using your hand, of course, the cremaster muscle is actually part of the pelvic floor. That's what lifts your testicles. And it will neurologically recruit the transverse abdominis. If you try to tighten your rectum, or you tighten your rectum or lift your testicles, or for women doing a Kegel and your belly button does not come in, that's a very important indicator that you have a serious core disintegration situation, which means you're highly susceptible to injury doing modern functional exercises, weightlifting and typical gym stuff, even aerobic type exercise. And you should get yourself to a trained CHEK Institute professional that's an expert at assessing and correcting core dysfunction. So I'll just demonstrate. We'll start nice and simple. The higher the butt is, the easier it is. And we'll just work here. And then you can go backwards. And again, you can turn sideways or go around. You can do whatever you want to do, crossovers, and just keep it at a level that's comfortable while you're warming yourself up. And just make it playful. Once you start getting fatigued to the point that you're having a hard time maintaining good form, you should stop. No pain, no gain's a really bad idea. That's a cultural disease. Just remember the rule: perfect practice makes perfect. Repetition is the mother of skill, provided there is skill in the repetition. We want to train to form failure. When we feel our form starting to break down, that's when we stop the exercise. If we go 1 rep past good form, when you're under the most stress, is when you have the greatest programming influence on the body. So if you do 10, 12, 15, 20 reps of an exercise with perfect form and your last 2 or 3 are bad, poor form, the brain is most aware of and the body most traumatized by those last reps. And pain is the most powerful reprogramming agent in the human nervous system. So when you go into the gym and see people training like teenagers with too much testosterone and they're all over the place and you can't tell who's working out harder, the spotter or the guy doing the weightlifting, that's extremely bad conditioning, and that can cause problems that can take months and months, if not years, in therapy to fix through corrective exercise. So what we're going to do now is push it further, and I'm going to show you what the reptilian crawl looks like, and I'll just do a run, then I'll come back and I'll show you some technique considerations. So we'll start in the bear walk, and to advance the level of load on your body, the lower you get to the ground, the more core stability it takes. So you're going to need to draw the belly button in, and you can still breathe. You have to learn to keep your core turned on, yet still breathe. So even though I'm taking a diaphragmatic breath and my belly's coming out, there's still background tension in the core so that my spine's not left unsupported. So as we get warmed up, we just go lower and lower till we're right down close to the ground like that, and that is the full reptilian crawl. Now you'll notice I put a yellow line on the ground. In order to train your brain to integrate the prime movers and the stabilizer muscles properly, I tell my athletes and clients or patients, I often take a piece of stretch cord, tie it around their waist, and put a little weight on it, a little plumb bob, and just say, pretend like you got a penis. And as you're doing that, you want your penis or your plumb bob to stay right on the line. That means that your brain has to use your core stabilizers. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you do it incorrectly, and pretend that I got my fella hanging down here. If my penis was hanging down or I had a plumb bob, it should go right along that line. So what you'll often see in the gym is people will be doing the exercise, and when they start working, their butt's wandering all over. So you can see I'm going side to side relative to that line, which means your outer unit systems, your prime movers, are overworking the stabilizer system, and you cannot maintain good joint integrity. So to do the exercise properly, I want that midline, like the line in my shorts, to go right down that line no matter how low I go. And so it would look like this. Then you can mix it up a little bit. So there you go. That's the bear walk into the reptilian crawl. You got your cues for good form. I gave you some tips for activating the core and knowing when your core isn't working properly. I talk all about this in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. There's a lot of information that's relevant for assessment in my scientific back training correspondence course. CHEK Exercise Coach will teach you